Hi, I'm Hazel. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a musician. I tour with various artists around the world, but I also write my own music as well, and I'm really into synths and sound design. Some of you have sent me in some questions that I thought I would just have a bit of a cosy sit down and answer them, and maybe have a little bit of a jam. I've got set up here, you can probably hear it in the background, my Prophet 6 that's being sequenced by the Elektron Analog 4, which is also playing some of its own sounds. Prophet's going through the space echo here, and the Analog 4 is going through this Chroma Console. That's just there for the vibes. So first question is by Tudor Acid. Quantisation. Yes, no, or use sparingly? Most of the above. Sometimes quantization, as we know, can give a bit of a sterile feel if everything's really rigid to the beat, but there is a place for it, and I think you just have to be selective. I would tend to group notes, MIDI notes, and move them together in order to quantize them, and that is either vertically, as in chords, or horizontally, as in a melody or a set of notes. The reason being, so with the chords, if we were to just hit quantize and quantize the whole thing to the grid, the samples will all start at exactly the same time, right? It's very unlikely that if you were to physically play a chord, that those notes will go down at exactly the same time. And so that gives it just more of a human feel, but also what it can do is prevent, when you've got, for example, a sampler instrument that is using the same sample pitched up for a few notes, if they hit at the same time, you can get slight out of phase kind of issues that make it sound a bit thinner. So that can help there too. And where you've got maybe like a group of notes as a melody, you might like the phrasing that is already in it, but you might want to just make it land a little bit more in time on the downbeat, for example. So if you move the whole thing, you can have it land where you want to land, but still retain that phrasing. Next question then. Berke Sen, how is your album going? Are you planning to do a Hazel Mills live concert in the future? I'd love to see that, and a video clip. So first of all, how's my album going? Well, I've got a few different projects on the go at the moment that are my own, and also there's a collaboration as well. I'm sort of prioritising which is the most finished at the moment, and I have just finished an album which is currently being mixed, which is a collaboration with Kate Brooks, and I'm really excited. I'm so excited for people to hear it. So that's gone well, that's done. Watch this space. And beyond that, I've got about 3 different projects under my own name. It's really hard when you kind of cover so many different ground to know what to focus on. And sometimes they don't fall within the same camp. So I'm kind of focusing on something that is more instrumental and a lot more upbeat, kind of techno-y, very synthy, but wonky synthy, lots of modular synths and stuff. Then I've got kind of more poppy, as you probably know if you know my songs that are out at the moment, maybe a bit closer to that, but again, a bit more upbeat. And then in addition to that, I've got some more kind of in the opposite direction. I've got some piano-led songs that are a bit more sort of cinematic and eerie and kind of ethereal. Are you planning to do a Hazel Mills live concert? So I've been shying away from it, I'm not going to lie. Partly because it's a nerve-wracking thing to do when you haven't played your own songs in front of people for more than a decade. But also because of the current climate, it makes it so difficult for people to tour. However, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and was starting to feel like I wouldn't mind putting together some kind of simple rig and just a way to play to people, because it's a part of my job that I really enjoy, and to be able to do that with my own music will, I think, just make it doubly special. And I know lots of people have asked me about this before, so I know there's some demand out there for it, and know that it is in the back of my mind. And what I'll probably do is start by it being more of a kind of live video that you can access online first to test the waters, and maybe I'll go from there. This is Goldfrappuccino. Have you ever had kit lust? Have there been instruments or pieces of equipment that you have not had the opportunity to experience? Yes and yes, but it's been a bit of a dilemma for me, I think, recently. The idea of trying to resist wanting to constantly get new gear all the time, because I try to avoid option paralysis, which is a very real problem. I think, if anything, the less gear you have, the more likely you are to actually be creative with it. I've found that if you really spend the time to get to know a piece of equipment, you get to know its quirks, its sweet spots, and you can just become fluent with it. I think that's where you're no longer thinking, how do I navigate this? Where do I go? Go to menu, the menu diving and the just learning the specific quirks of a piece of equipment. You don't need new gear to have something fresh sounding. I do try not to lust after new gear for the sake of it, and more rekindle my relationship with old gear. For example, in the last year or two, I've kind of been reacquainted with my Nord Lead 2, which is in here, and just sort of fallen in love with it again, and maybe even more than I did before. So I think there really is something to be said for just one or two pieces of choice gear and getting to know them. And I am really happy with what I do have. However, I don't want it to seem like I'm not answering your question, because of course I've had gear lust, and for me it's often with things that have a physical presence and make me feel like when I'm sitting down to them that I'm having a physical interaction with something and responding to something immediately. And so I think the two that I'm really lusting after at the moment, pieces of gear, are Wurlitzer electric piano and a Jupiter 8 for that reason. So anyone giving either of those away, give me a shout. This is from Jack. What do you think about music made specifically to fit the on-stage play or video? I've had some experience actually performing music to on-stage performances in theatre, and not just music but also live Foley and sound effects too. It's a whole other thing, and it's so fun to do. But in terms of like film, I really love a soundtrack that I feel like it's created this whole world that I'm immersed in, and that there's just something indescribable about it for that reason. I love Thomas Newman for his sort of piano eerie harmonies, but I also love a lot of people that have incorporated synths and found sound, like John Carpenter, Vangelis, and more recently the work of Ben Frost. He did the soundtrack for the series Dark, which is one of my absolute favourite series, and he worked a lot with the concept of using physical objects to help create the sound world that these characters are in. There's a video somewhere about it where he recorded the music that he was going to use, went to this ginormous ship and pumped out the recording out of a speaker into the space, and then recorded back, essentially like a convolution reverb or an echo chamber on location. And it sounded incredible. Loads of other composers like Ryuichi Sakamoto, Clint Mansell, also Diego Stocco, who's worked with Hans Zimmer a lot. They're really into just making sounds out of anything, basically, bowing stuff, scraping stuff. And even Diego Stocco builds his own some of them huge instruments just for making sound effects for film. There's also companies like Leaf Audio and Folk Tech who've created instruments that are like boxes with things, various different materials coming out of them that you can either tap, scrape, bow, whatever, and you get all sorts of different sounds out of them, whether it's kind of more metallic stuff or wooden. I really love that kind of thing, not even just for film music, but using it for my own projects. Different Braid has asked, Desert Island Discs, ... Is one of my favourite things to listen to is BBC Desert Island Discs. I love it. So I thought I just really quickly went through my Tidal albums and playlists and put together this list. I'll put it on the screen of tracks that I think I probably wouldn't be able to live without. So just really quickly run through them. First is one that changed my whole world, musically speaking, and that is Piano Phase by Steve Reich. The first time I heard that was the first time I was introduced to the concept of American minimalism, and I was just getting into live looping as well, and so it was kind of perfect. So if you don't know what American minimalism, it's based on lots and lots of repetition. Arguably the forerunner to techno music for that reason, but just things that are basically repeated and gradually varied over time. That was a big one for me, and it's really long, so bargain, really long. Page 43, Crosby and Nash. I don't really have much to say about that other than that I just think it's one of the most perfect songs and makes me feel the feels. The Last Emperor by Ryuichi Sakamoto. This one was difficult because I knew I needed something of his piano music, and this is a piece that I really love, so that's in there. Another piano thing, Elsa by Bill Evans, one of my favourite jazz pianists. Music for Airports. The first track off of this album by Brian Eno is something that it's probably one of my most listened to tracks ever, and that is because back in, I don't know, years ago, I started making a playlist to listen to when I was in like a kind of relaxed environment, like either just chilling out at home or in the bath or whatever. And I listened to this playlist over and over again, or if I'm meditating, say, and it became something that I could immediately relax to. So now it's my playlist that I listen to when I get on a plane and start feeling inevitably jittery, because I do. And it just, the power of association, it immediately relaxes me. So I feel like if I'm on a desert island and there are ever any sticky situations, I mean, it's not going to get me food or, I don't know, get me out of a storm, but it might make me feel better about the whole thing. I couldn't decide on a Michael Jackson song, so I chose these two. I grew up on, well, quite a lot of his work, but Thriller in particular, so it had to be something from there. There's this medieval choral group called Anonymous 4 that I listen to every Christmas around that time, and it's become something of a soundtrack of that season for me. So I figure, and it's really, really relaxing as well. So actually, it doesn't have to be that time of year to listen to it. But the record that they made called On Yule's Night, which is like based around Yule time, is something I go back to again and again. And the last one, sorry, I couldn't choose. Maybe it's the main theme, but I just generally put down the Blade Runner soundtrack because it's another one that helps me on planes when I'm feeling jittery. Next question. I loved seeing you pop up in various large-scale tours over the past several years. I'm curious to know your favourite and least favourite parts of touring, and how you got your first gig as a keyboard player in someone else's band. This is Warren Harrison. What are my favourite and least favourite parts of touring? I love seeing the world. I love just getting out of this bubble that I'm in and seeing it from far away and seeing the world from high up. As much as I said I don't like flying, there's something pretty amazing about looking out and seeing the world so tiny, so small, and just getting that perspective. And you know, I get that in a lot of places that I go to if we happen to get out of the city and just see the kind of expansive landscape. And just getting to perform every night or nearly every night is such a privilege because I enjoy it so much, and to get to do that regularly, it feels amazing. It's really good. And also the sense of connection, not just to the people that you're working with, but the people that you perform to as well. There's that, I don't know if you've heard of the term collective effervescence, but it's something that you might experience if you go to a sports game or a musical concert or something where there's a whole bunch of people in the same room together and they're all feeling the adrenaline and the power and the magic together. So the things that I don't like, or maybe the things that I find challenging about touring, the travelling bit is something I do struggle with. I get nervous flying and making sure I get the right flight or making sure I can get to the airport okay, and all the logistics of travel, I don't think I will ever not find stressful. I mean, the more you do it, it gets easier, for sure. Losing the flow of home life. So when you come back from a tour and you suddenly realise you haven't cooked for however many months. I found that this year after the Kylie tour, that it was an 8-month tour and it's taken me a good while to get back into the swing of finding the energy to cook and remembering that I actually love doing it. And the same with things like, you know, house chores and the things we don't like to do as much. But that adjustment is always a challenge. Also the kind of the glam side of touring, which sounds sensationalized from the outside. All the kind of media and the social media and the dressing up and the interviews, and not that I have a lot of interviews, but being filmed a lot. That's something that it's very exciting, but that's a bit of an adjustment for me. I have to sort of switch on an extra bit of energy in order to do that. And after a while, it can be quite tiring. I don't think everyone feels that way, but I'm an introvert. So it takes a lot of energy to do things like that. The other part of that question was, how did you get your first gig as a keyboard player in someone else's band? Well, by knowing somebody else who already worked with them, and that was Andy Mackay from Roxy Music was working on his own solo project, and he got me involved to play piano and do some vocals as well. And so that was my first job, that we did a little mini tour of the UK with that. Okay, now final question. Would love to know how you approach programming your gear for a show. Do you just try to recreate the sounds on a given record, or do artists hand you samples to work off of? It's a combination, actually. Much of it has seemed to be that I will replicate and recreate sounds. So, for example, for the Kylie show that I just did, the synth parts that I played were all me recreating the original sounds as closely as I possibly could. There were some scenarios where it's usually if the original sound or recording is so specific, and maybe because it's been processed in a certain way in real time, like the way that it evolves over time. It might be modulating, it might be different automations that have been performed into it and then processed, and you know, all kinds of things. And if that's a really important part of the sound, then it might be easier to try and sample the sound and turn it into a playable instrument, like literally chop the notes and then assign them to notes on the keyboard and play it that way. Sometimes it doesn't work and it just sounds a bit weird, but often it does. Yeah, I did that a lot with Goldfrapp as well, because some of those synth sounds, they're incredible and they're like really hard to recreate just because of the way that they were created. And I guess the other angle is that sometimes it's okay not to replicate the sound exactly, because it might be that the sound doesn't translate in the same way in a live context, and that if it's slightly altered, it could work better in a live band, particularly if it's a lot of electronic sounds within the record and it's being translated to a live band. Thanks for hanging out with me. I've had a lovely time. It's pouring down with rain outside right now, so I feel like I'm in the right place. Cozy indoors, talking about music, listening to music, making music. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of autumn and rest of 2025 and beyond, and I will see you very soon.